I'm talking to Dot on the phone and she can't find the link.
It's in the email.
And I forwarded her the email and it's not going through to her, so I don't know what to do.
Does she have Zoom? I assume she has Zoom on her computer.
Yeah, because she tested it earlier today.
So if she goes to Zoom and select on the main page, join meeting, and it will ask her for a code to put in.
You hear that?
And the code that she would enter, can I give that to you, Michelle?
Yes, I'll write it down.
It's 940610574. And that should put her right into the meeting.
Okay. Okay, I'll mute myself now. If I can
Thank
figure
you, Michelle.
out. I'm muting.
Let's give it just a moment, see if we can get Dot on board. It always feels funny when you're having technical issues and you show up late.
Do we want, Mike, do we want to all be on mute?
Yeah.
I think ideally we would all be on mute. Actually, ideally, you would all have a mute for me, so you could just mute me. So, Amy, you're on here as well. And we have Lorna on here, it shows.
Yes.
Yes.
I figured as much.
Nothing.
Right. Just to let you guys know, at some point, I will probably let my picture drop out because I'm gonna eat dinner from a local restaurant that we just picked up. So I'm listening. I'm here. If my picture's not there.
You know, Matt, that's a good point. You're not required to have your video on. So if you choose to shut your video off, either by clicking video off or putting something up, a sticky note over your camera, you're welcome to do that as well if you need to eat dinner from a local restaurant.
Is Jennifer Naplin in yet?
Yes, Jennifer's here.
Okay. And Amy McHenry?
Amy's here and Dot's here. Hi, Dot.
And Dot just got in. Okay. Jody.
Can you hear us okay, Dot?
Sometimes it takes a minute.
Yeah. So Laura, when we start this evening, most of this, of course, is on the COVID-19 pandemic policies. Is it a group that's presenting that? Are you, the mayor, other administrators presenting that?
So thank you for that question. Our emergency management manager will be going through all of the policies. So if you don't know, our emergency management manager is Sean Tozer. So if we're ready to begin, we will jump right in.
Yeah, let me just check with Dot. Dot, can you hear us okay? I can't hear you, but it looks like you can hear us. Your Dot, your screen froze up just a little bit here, so Dot, can you hear us? If you can give us a thumbs up if you can hear us.
They're somewhere. I don't know why I can't see them all. You expand the screen. There we go. There we go. Now we see you all.
So Jennifer, you said you don't. I'm not sure I understand. You can't hear us?
Can hear her. We can't hear you.
Yeah, we can't hear you. So you might check on the bottom of your screen on the left side. There's a mute.
You can unmute.
It looks like she just muted it. Jennifer, if you're on your Surface, you might want to check the volume settings because I know that was an issue for me when I first tried this.
Thank you, Mayor. So Jennifer, the mayor, if you could hear that, was suggesting you check your volume button on your Surface.
I think I can. I think it
Oh, there they are. Oh, Carrie is here. We just need Dot.
Mike, you might want to suggest she log out and then log back in.
Yeah. So Jennifer, if you can hear me, Jennifer, there's a suggestion that you might want to log out and log back in just to see if that will reset it. Sorry. So Dot, I lost your video link, and last I wasn't able to hear you.
It only shows somebody at a time. Oh, yeah, because you can go over and see the little button on the side.
It's always a bit frustrating when you tried it this afternoon and it worked fine, and tonight it's not working.
The other thing, Mike, is when you start and you kind of go into it, it'll ask you if you want to test your audio
Yes.
speakers. So everybody probably should do that just so that as they're coming in, do the test.
Thank you for that, Laura. And Amy, I saw your note as well. She could test it before. So we're just on hold here. Hi, Jennifer. No, I still can't hear you, but I can see you. I can see the big W.
So Mike, I can put her in off of my cell phone.
Well, there's another way. There should have been a link to a phone number to call in as well. So you can do video and then call in and actually do audio that way as well.
I do think on our,
Should it switch to people who are talking? So like when Steve and those guys are
But
talking?
unless they've muted themselves.
We can hear you, Jody.
Oh, sorry.
That's a switch in the view. If you
I
go
got-
to the view options on the top of the screen, you can either view you can either view who's talking, or you can view the
Oh,
scroll across the top.
Can everybody stop for a second? Jennifer,
can you hear me now?
yes, that's clear as a bell.
So there was a setting for, where is it? Anyway, it said it was taking it from like a headphone rather than the speaker or the microphone on the Surface. I don't know why. I didn't change anything compared to when I tried it earlier.
So Dot, let me check with you. Can you hear us, Dot? Okay,
okay, so Dot, you want to do the same exercise that Jennifer did, which is there's down the left-hand corner where it shows there's a mic, and then there's a little caret that's to the right of that. So click onto that, and then
Why is she?
Because you could do stuff.
you'll be able to choose which audio. It might be where it's trying to pick up an audio from another device.
Mine was picking up the headset for some reason. I have no idea why, but when I switched it to the microphone array option, that's when you started hearing me.
We can't hear you yet, Dot.
Now,
Ah, yes.
there we go.
Jennifer Naplin.
Hello.
All right.
So it looks like we're set, ready to go. If everyone's set, I'll go ahead and we'll start our meeting officially. Well, welcome to the City of Duval Committee of the Whole for Tuesday, March 17th, 2020. It's 5:44. This evening, we're dedicating our COW to our public health emergency with the COVID-19 virus. We have 4 specific items we're hoping to discuss over the next 60 minutes. The first is a resolution affirming the declaration of emergency. The second is public health emergency and/or pandemic response and recovery policy and procedures. Third is public health emergency and/or pandemic utility billing policy. And finally, the City of Duval telecommuting policy. With that, I'll turn it over to Sean Tozer, who's our emergency manager. Really a jack of all trades, does much more with the city as well. Sean, welcome, and I'll let you take it from here.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. I know we're all doing something different today. So Mike, I think you're the only unmuted. So we don't have our video screen, so if somebody has a question, if you could break in and let us know if a council member has a question on the way, is that okay?
Yes, I'll do that. I'll try to keep an eye. If folks want to hold up their hand or use the icon, I'll try to catch that and call on you.
And I suppose they can also unmute themselves. I just want to make sure we don't get too many, 7 people all at once. So, all right, well, perfect. Well, off we go. So I'm Sean Tozer, City of Duval Public Works, but this hat I'm wearing currently is emergency manager for the city. So we have obviously a very unique situation, something that's been developing for a while and that we're all a part of now. So this is kind of, I always try to bring a little something funny to everything we do, but this is kind of where literally we've been sitting for almost weeks now. I mean, just the information coming at us is enormous, and it's hard to sort through, and it's been a challenge for all of us council members, general members of the public, cities, first responders. It's just a lot of stuff out there, and it's a lot to take in and sort through. We're all doing the best we can. So with that said, I wanted to kind of recap a little bit of where we are, and then we'll get into the policies specific. But it's definitely important to build the case of how we got here and make sure we all have a similar frame of reference. So, and just a quick check-in, Mike, is everybody hearing me okay?
Yes, I am.
Perfect. Okay. All right. So here we go. So I'm not going to read every bullet for you because that would be boring. But what we have here is just the general situation overview. So what I want to show is sort of the range of dates. So back, I think on January 21st was roughly about the first email we got from King County that started to hint that, hey, we're starting to activate. We're looking at some things. By the 28th was when the Health and Medical Area Command from Department of Health King County Department of Health was established. And then we started receiving these snapshots. So they would send us regular communications about what the HMAC was working on and how they were evaluating the potential at the time, not actual cases, but the potential for coronavirus to impact our region and how they were starting to plan accordingly. Seems like a big jump in time there, but really the next, there was some discussion, the mayor and admin, we had some discussions about how to message some of the preparedness measures to staff. And again, it was trying to find the right time for that. We were dealing with flooding and other stuff going on, but we were all keenly aware of what was going on, and we were trying to start making steps in that direction. I can't say any of us thought this was going to happen necessarily, but here we are. So 2/28, that would be a Friday. That was our first local sort of scare. There was an incident at the high school, so it elicited a response and elicited some further deeper conversation. And then right on the heels of that, the situation began developing in Kirkland. So Kirkland I'm not going to recap the news, everybody watches the news, but Kirkland's situation developed quickly. And so on that Sunday following Kirkland's confirmed cases and the death began the countywide emergency manager phone calls. So every single day, all the emergency managers from across the county sit in on a phone call. We all kind of go over what's new. Department of Health gives a briefing about the current situation, and then it's a good coordination messaging. So at that time, March 29th, there were 6 confirmed cases and 1 death. We're in a different situation now. So that began developing really quickly. So right on the heels of that weekend, we started our first local response planning meeting. And so we brought together the city, us, PD, school, fire, and that was kind of how it started. So we began first saying, hey, what would this mean to us? What would it look like if we had a confirmed case with a first responder or in a school? What kind of things would that impact? How would we handle that? So again, I think, reasonably early, we're trying to be proactive and trying to getting our group in order and kind of figuring out what to do. So those calls are happening currently still on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So those are continuing, and we've added Hillside Academy because they were one of the other larger congregate populations with kids. And then also starting yesterday, we added the Chamber of Commerce to our coordination call. And there's a reason for that, and you'll kind of see that picture build out here. So by March 3rd, we were on snapshot 31. So I'm trying to show you how many how much messaging is going out. There was a lot that was communicated up until this outbreak
Sean.
started. Yeah.
I'm sorry. What we are seeing, and maybe this is what we're supposed to be seeing, is it looks like Laura's Window Explorer, where it just shows file listings.
Oh, nuts.
Yeah.
Really?
I don't know what everyone else is seeing, but I'm not.
Oh,
seeing
thank
the
you, Jennifer.
Okay, let me go back.
Oh,
I
just text that same thing, Jennifer.
Oh, good. Okay. Sorry.
Wow, well, we got to fix that.
I know, Sean, you went to all that work. We can't miss out.
I'll see.
Thank you. So Jennifer, there's a big W behind you. Is that
I
for
know.
Washington State University?
Yes.
Sure
This
is.
is my husband's office because it's the only room with a lock. So I've locked myself in here.
Boo. Go Cougs.
What?
We're going to try it again
We
here.
thought it was Washington State University with the big W.
No, it is. I mean, it's University of Washington.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Ah,
Where is your Zoom thing?
Right there.
Well, but this is joining me. You already got a meeting started. Hold on, we're trying to find this. Darn technology.
Don't close all
No,
windows.
it won't.
Go into the right. Go into that one.
And it's somewhere up here on your. We gotta start closing things to find the right window here.
Jump out.
I'm wondering if you're in
Oh.
here. Oh no, where are we?
We're out.
And we're in. You guys can all still hear us, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
We can hear you and see you, but we lost even what we had before with Laura's computer screen.
So just a plug for,
I have it open on my computer. Do you want me to see if I can share it?
Sure. And now we can't find you guys back again. Somehow. Go figure.
So Matt, did you have something to share?
Okay.
no, I'm good.
So we've got screen sharing up and it shows the COVID, it shows a virus.
Okay. Well, so you guys, we're gonna keep rolling here.
Okay?
Yeah, so let me open this up because I kind of got to see this at the same time. But we can't see you, we can't see anything of that, but we're just gonna keep rolling. Can you actually see us?
We can see you and we can also see the screen.
Okay.
The screen that's up now says situation overview.
Okay, so and you already missed the wonderful graphic of the kid with the fire hose. That's fine. So all right, so here we are.
Yeah.
So we're on the date. Again, I know we're short on time, but you guys see kind of building the picture of what's going on and how this thing started to increase. The image on the left of that screen that you should be seeing, situation overview, that's just a snapshot. So with our local response planning group, we're doing these briefings. And so I usually do an outline for that, and we kind of talk about the same stuff. Everybody has to check in. And again, you're just seeing some of the trigger points that have happened, and then we are here today. Amy, if you're sharing, could you move to the next slide, please? Mayor, are you guys all on preliminary measures now?
We're still on the situation. The mayor's screen froze up for some reason. I can see her picture, but she's not moving. It froze up.
I think we're gonna have to go back in. We've got to find it because we're recording it too.
So now we've lost the screen that showed the slides.
Oh no.
It cut out for a second. Can you see the screen?
No, it cut out.
Okay, let me pull it back.
Your call. You want to relaunch? Everybody else
Okay,
sign
so
in?
everybody, we cannot find where it went on our desktop. The only thing that we're gonna be able to do is relaunch it.
You're welcome to do that. The mayor has brought up the presentation again, and we are on slide 4, preliminary measures.
I can go with this. but I'm
Yeah,
not
let's
sure
just
it's
keep
happening
going
before.
with this
Yeah.
one. I don't want to
Okay.
waste our time.
All right, very good. So we're on preliminary measures. So you guys might have seen some of this outlined in some of the communication from the mayor or that's been forwarded along. So some of these stages that we began to develop of how we would protect staff and things we would take to sort of respond to the incident. So we called stage 1 prevention. It was implemented on March 2nd, 2020. And again, it was a pretty basic step. It was reducing that in-person contact and meetings, and then also the physical contact with the public. And even internally, we recommended people not, shake hands as much, that sort of thing. So the social distancing measures has been so very popular. Don't close it, Steve. All right, so stage 2 is our next step, and we call that exclusion. And so that is all of the above plus some more stuff. And so that's generally where we are right now, but it was the closure of facilities to the general public. That is really the biggest piece of it. Can you, I can't see it, Steve. Sorry, we're having our own technical difficulties.
Yeah. No.
Amy's showing
Amy's
it. Mary's
showing
showing it. So, and the adjustment of hours and operations, and then also starting to transition to some of the telework options for meetings. So again, that's sort of where we're living right now. And then the next step was a step that actually we kind of jokingly didn't think we were going to get to, so we didn't make a name at first, but stage 3 is facility closures. And that's where we're at sort of currently as being where we need to go. There is sort of a phase 3 light or a stage 3 light where it's some of the operational adjustments like the police department has made and some others that, is kind of a light version of it, but we are looking at some of these stage 3s being a little bit more drastic and putting our continuity of operations plan into effect and some other stuff like that. So again, sorry for any of the herky jerkiness here. Our technology is a little weird, but we're done with this slide. Can you go ahead and go to 5?
We're at what other cities are doing.
Okay. I think I deleted one of my own slides in here. So 5 this is fine. So our continuity of operations plan, just to go back, is something that we're working on. A lot of the directors had worked on deciding what their essential services were and what that looked like. And so we're still trying to get it finished. It's just, again, we've had so much going on, we haven't gotten to get to that yet. But again, it's just identifying what is the absolute basic services we need to provide and how do we do that. So something I wanted to mention is, yeah, these other cities are doing, and I've got a whole list here, and the mayor had sent that later this afternoon. I can't even touch it, but you can see all the King County proclamations of emergency. So I think there was 30 plus in addition to the county and some others. So what we're seeing, and again, in phone call after phone call, all these cities are in an alternate form of operations, whether it's a closure or crew rotation or telecommuting required, telecommuting optional. Again, just unprecedented, and it's just, there's pages and lists that I started to highlight because I was going to mention them, but it's not even worth it because there's too many. And so we're seeing some people doing, having their staffs and doing rotational periods. So like a week, as an example, Issaquah Public Works broke their crew into two halves, and they're having one do 2 weeks on and then the next one. So 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off for them. Again, things we never probably really thought we would see. So that's kind of the idea of what's going on around us. Next slide, please. So this should be strategy. You guys all see strategy?
No.
What's the next slide that you guys are seeing? Mayor, are you guys still on the proclamations and what are other cities doing?
No.
So, we just lost that screen again, Sean. It looks like we're having some technical difficulty as we go from screen to
So
screen.
Mike, that being said, we're gonna go back in because we don't have control on this side. Not that we have to have control, but we kind of do, because I gotta just make sure that we're still recording, and for whatever reason we lost it on our screen, but we know the meeting is still going on.
So Laura, what are you suggesting? Are you going to go out and go back in?
Yeah, we're gonna go.
I have a feeling, I have a feeling that once she ends, everybody's gonna drop off and we're gonna all have to dial back in.
But I don't think we have any.
You just try your window and then, yeah.
Okay, but before you do that, just let me make sure I've got that number written down.
So I'll give you the number the access code. Sorry, I've got to pull it back up.
Disappeared.
So
Want me to
that
read it out loud?
number, that access code, if you need it, here it is, 940610574. So again, it's 940610574.
So while you guys are doing that, we're trying to just troubleshoot before we like dive out of it, but
Okay, we can hold on.
And
Welcome
Laura,
back, Matt.
Laura, it does show that it's still recording.
I know.
Go to the E,
I know that that was one of your concerns.
right?
I know.
Cause maybe click in that top bar, no, up to the right, the next one to the left, sorry. Yeah, just hit refresh.
Oh, we're back up,
You might want to get signed in.
but I might have to sign in. Can anybody hear me? Wave their hand.
I can hear you.
Here,
Okay, well,
try your login again.
we're technically still in it.
Okay, perfect, it just brought the screen back on.
It's just, we're sorry about that.
It's okay. So what we're seeing now is just the thumbnail of everybody. We don't have your screen up yet.
Yep, I'm gonna try and we're gonna share one more time. Just
I
give,
think we lost the mayor. I don't see her.
We did lose the mayor. So Matt, did you have something? I couldn't tell if you were waving at me or what do you got, Matt?
Oh, nothing. I was flinging my pencil around. I had
Okay.
dinner at Lasagna. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but I had gyros. It was delicious.
Stop share.
Thank you.
They're
So
open. There's time to carry out.
thank you for helping our community. So Laura, for a moment there, the screen popped back up again and then we've lost it again.
That's what you want to share now. Go over and click share. Now, do you guys see our screen?
We have the share screen and it's on strategy.
Perfect. So we'll leave the.
I wonder if did you put the PowerPoint in presentation mode?
yeah.
I wonder if that killed the
It could.
window edges kind
It
of
could.
thing.
It might have.
A note to self.
So we're gonna try not to do that again.
We're not gonna go in presentation mode again.
All right, so everybody sees us now?
Yes.
Yes.
Do we have everybody back that?
We are still missing the mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem, that's, wait.
I can see him logged in here.
Okay, you're logged in, okay.
So everyone's here except the mayor.
Let's keep going. I'll contact the mayor.
Okay, thank you.
You advance, or if you need whatever. Okay, so here we go. All right, guys, that was fun, huh? All right, so we're back. All right, so this graphic here is like brand new. Literally, the Joint Information Center from King County sent it out this afternoon at like 4:30. So as I was trying to wrap this up, I dumped it in just because I thought it'd be meaningful, maybe. So again, a lot of you are familiar with the strategy that they're working on right now, which is the flattening the curve, right? And so this image, and Department of Health in today's conference said they're working on some more modeling about when they expect to see the peak of cases for this whole incident. And they were predicting that a couple weeks ago. They were predicting that to be in could be 2 months from, a week or two ago. So they're going to give us more information. It's available, but they generated this new graphic, which again is interesting. So it's showing what their anticipated peaks and points would be depending on those different intervention methods, right? So if you did nothing, or if you close schools, what that effect is on that curve. So I'm only sharing it just because it was brand new, it was interesting. I think it helps, again, describe sort of the severity of what they're looking at and what they're trying to avoid happening, which is that highest of height. Moving on to the next one. So one of the things I wanted to mention, one of the reasons it's important for us to bring our Chamber of Commerce and everybody else into this is a disaster, really. I mean, a lot of hurricanes or tornadoes or earthquakes, they're a point in time, and it's a finite period of time, but this is going to last for weeks and months before we're out of the actual disaster phase of it. And I think it's something that's important to understand is this process of how you work through an emergency and how you work through a disaster and ultimately get to what everybody wants is recovery. So I showed some of the FEMA guidance for the National Disaster Recovery Framework. And again, this is stuff that unfortunately we're probably going to become more familiar with here over the near future. But again, it really want to drive home the fact that this is a long-term event, period. Even if the disaster in the moment in time is short, the recovery for it can be very, very long. And so again, there's some of that information about how we need to start preparing our minds to wrap around this, because our business community are going to be affected for a long time. Individuals are going to be affected for a long time, and we as staff and everybody else. And it's maybe not because we're going to get sick, but because there's a general effect in the community. So I just want to start making sure that we're framing this and putting that basis of understanding for everybody that this is a serious event. This is and there's going to be a lot of work to do to get to the end of it. So. All right, we'll keep on moving. So financial impacts, I wanted to at least highlight that and start it. So we don't have an exact number. I don't have an exact number for you today, but what I can tell you is that we're putting all of the tools, we're using all the tools we can to begin tracking it correctly. So, and that is supremely important, as this is a federally declared disaster, and there are elements of it that are reimbursable based. There will be some ways that we can get some reimbursement for some of the actions we're taking right now. So it doesn't mean they're going to pay for every nickel and dime that we spend. It doesn't mean that they're going to pay for every hour we're involved. But again, if you do not document what your cost was or what your impact was, you don't have a chance at getting anything back. So what we've been doing, and we've done this in previous public disaster aid applications, is we have BARS codes that Dana has set up some new ones for this. We also have project management tracking codes that are being applied to invoices, and also will use to track any and all related staff time, because that helps build the required match for FEMA dollars. So you have to get over a threshold, and then you have to have a certain match. And so all of this makes you eligible to, once you're above that match, you're eligible for dollars to come back to you. So what I can be specific on is we reached our group credit purchase limit today. So that's $25,000. We know not every expenditure that we have on the list, and I have the list somewhere in here, is not related to this. There were some general, training expenditures, some general, other routine charges on that. But if we had to throw a dart at a number, that would be where we're at right now, only for purchases and supplies. What's going to be the biggest expense, or likely to be the biggest expense, is staff time and related staff time. And we don't have a handle on that yet, but we will, because we're putting in the right mechanisms. Before we move on to other stuff, does anybody, oh yeah, and services. Does anybody want to chat about this? Because then we're going to move into policies and declarations.
John, quickly, and then Michelle, why don't you go ahead? Michelle, you have a question.
I don't have a question. I just want to thank you so much for putting separate BARS numbers for the emergency response, so that we can, as a council members, we can see what's being spent. Because I felt like in the past when we had emergencies, it just got, grouped in with other expenses, and we never really saw the true expense of the emergency response. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem. This is definitely one of those where tracking is everything here, because like I said, if you haven't documented it, it isn't there as far as FEMA and the state emergency management is concerned. So
anyone else? Mayor?
I just wanted to point out, thank you, Councilmember Hoag. This is, one of the things we are in this process, tracking the staff time that's dedicated to specifically everything that we're doing on emergency response. It's not normal that we get reimbursement for that, but it's a good way to separate out what our staff normal duties were versus the emergency duties, and will help us budget better in the future as well.
Any other questions? Sean, just one comment. At some point, it'd obviously be nice to just see what we're spending money on, both equipment and personnel time. And, you know, we certainly don't need that in the middle of the emergency here. But that'll be helpful for us just to have a better idea of how we're spending those funds.
Yeah, and absolutely. And I think we will be able to give you near real ideas. You know, I think once we're 2 weeks into it right now, so even, you know, we're not even invoiced for some things. You know, the only kind of idea we have is using that dollar threshold from credit cards. But I think we'll be able to give you pretty good data reasonably quickly, and from soup to nuts, from you know, what we're buying for laptops or staff meals to staffing costs. Again, give us a little time to get it rolling, but I think you guys will see a pretty clear picture, I think.
Great, thank you. Chief, you had a comment?
I do. I want to echo what everyone else is saying, that you know, Sean, you're doing an amazing job trying to manage this event and keep all of us in line. But excuse me, I don't want to be misleading in this slide when we say we've reached our max at 25,000. This is just P card or credit card spending. There are purchase orders out there that don't reflect in this slide, and I will be very candid. I have a purchase order out there that's not reflected here. That's almost 13,000, and that's for protective equipment for my staff. I just wanted to make that clear.
Well, thank you. You know, I can't necessarily speak on behalf of every council member, but I would like to say, you know, in emergencies, we do what we really think is best to help protect our community and our employees. And you need to know that you have our full support, you know, in moving forward and in doing the best we can. So what we don't want to be is a hindrance as a council. That's why we have this emergency declaration, so the mayor can authorize and directors can get the things we need. That's the most important thing right now. We can sort the rest of that out as we go. You know, we trust that you're making the right decisions with the information we have. So thank you again. Well, Sean, we can keep moving on here.
Perfect, and thank you, Chief, for adding that. Again, we haven't rolled them all together, but he's absolutely right. This is not a complete picture yet. So, and we'll move next to the emergency declaration. That's the first thing. Mayor, I think you're going to handle some of this in here, but I can do the quick part, which is March 4th, 2020 declared. I think we were a little bit ahead of the curve, which was really good. Again, I think a lot of our planning effort was a little bit ahead of the curve. And but again, we see based on that list that you saw before, we're in good company as well. Every city has joined us, and in the county and then throughout the state. So, and again, the purpose of going to Mayor Pro Tem Remington's last comment, one of the reasons for that proclamation is to be able to ensure we can take swift action and necessary action in appropriate timeline. So, Mayor, do you want to speak to this slide?
Well, I think in general, I sent out my report to council. I for my service not access the internet. So we did an email on the 11th with some details and emailed out the formal report today. I'll go over that a little bit more in the formal council meeting as part of my mayor's report before we get to, you know, the new business of the day. But in general, you know, we've been pretty much nonstop for the last 2 weeks as a city, all of us that are working on these issues. And we were ahead of the curve, and it was definitely nice to be ahead of the curve in this situation.
Well, thank you, Mayor. You were cutting in and out. We heard, I think, 90% of that, but every now and then your screen freezes up and it slows down a little bit. I don't know if there's something we can get squared away before a council meeting. It looks fine now.
It's likely, just to jump in, it's Laura, it's likely a bandwidth issue. So if there's any possibility of everybody kind of coming off of other things in the household, that might help.
Others in your household streaming videos and movies.
Funny.
I already told my kids no internet until I'm done.
All right,
We're ready, Sean.
We're ready to move on. Okay, very good. All right, so here's probably the boringest slide I could come up with. Oh, nuts, look at that. So pandemic response and recovery policy. Oh, I see what I did with that missing slide. So this is probably one of our bigger topics to talk about here today. I didn't put all of the language in there. It's a couple pages long, but I wanted to highlight what it was. And again, I'm hoping council, I know this was sent out, I believe, yesterday evening. Last night, but again, a lot of the purpose of this is to make sure that we were on a square footing to be able to respond and react in the ways that we were seeing things develop. And whether or not their policies were as far along, cities have taken steps that are exactly detailed in this policy starting last week. I mean, cities are already implementing many versions of this policy all over the place. So the point of it, again, you can see the purpose, but the real highlights were to make procedures that helped ensure staff safety and provide them some security. Also define what to do in a quarantine situation, and what if we had a work-related exposure, which is a high, we have high-risk workers for. A couple of the bigger pieces is it creates the ability for a sick leave deficit. And the idea for that is we do have staff members who either haven't been here that long, or maybe have used some of their accrued PTO for one reason or another, and might not have a large amount on hand. So we were trying to create space for any one of our employees who may get sick, or may have a loved one get sick, or a spouse or family member that they end up being gone for a duration of time. So the deficit, again, which is usually a dirty word, the deficit allows them to take the time they need, but also puts the mechanisms in place for them to take that time, create a leave deficit, and then a formula to pay it back. And we set this at half of any sick time accrued in future pay periods. And the reason for that was we didn't want an employee to come to work every day. Say it's the worst case and you get a 96-hour deficit, that staff member would never have any sick time for a year. And the chances are that they, don't feel well. We could put ourselves in another situation. So we wanted to make it so they could still accrue some additional sick time for regular illnesses, but also be always paying back that whatever deficit they might accumulate. And then if there's a separation of employment, it's also handled at that time as well. So the other piece that this really talked about was defining facility closures and how we would handle wages for that. So the big piece was the closure pay for remote workers. So whether the governor declared that everybody's going to do it, or whether we, for our own reason as a city, chose that we were going to close our facilities and we wanted to have all workers telecommute or stay home for one reason or the other, which a number of cities have done already. This gave us a mechanism to ensure wages for those workers at home, whether they can or cannot work, which again, our goal is to make sure they're all doing productive work at home, but then also provides a premium for those workers who must come in. Because again, there is essential duties and there is stuff that we need here every day. So we want to make sure that those employees are recognized and feel that they need that to come in. So that's sort of the outline of it. I'm happy to have anybody else add anything, Mayor, Laura, or Steve, or anybody, Carrie.
It's okay if I'll add something really quick, but I would like the ability for the mayor and Carrie to say something. This policy came in its original draft probably about almost 2 weeks ago. And it was drafted by administration based on a couple of other cities that had just recently adopted it. And we went through administration, our unions, and also through multiple reviews with our attorney as well, because this isn't a typical policy. So it did take us a little bit of time and effort to do it.
Mayor Pro Tem, I think if there's any questions regarding that, this would be a good time for this policy.
You might want to switch to full screen mode.
Sean, I do have a comment real quick. This is the chief, if this is appropriate. I just wanted to also interject that, you know, a lot of these things that we're doing, we don't always have time as a group to discuss everything, but I have had conversation with the mayor, and our code also continues to allow for request of shared sick leave. So as people maybe or employees may go into a deficit, our code still allows for them to request shared leave, and our employees are pretty giving. So, you know, typically if an employee runs into a situation where they run out of the sick leave, although this policy allows for that deficit, I would be willing to bet that 90% of the time other employees are going to donate to get them out of that deficit.
That's a fantastic point, Chief, and we've experienced that in the past with staff members who had extended absences that you know, they didn't have enough time for it. And absolutely, I've been a part of that where we've a number of employees have donated sick leave. So you're perfect, well put.
Mayor Ockerland?
Mayor.
Okay, I just also wanted to point out, and part of the reason for that deficit, in addition to the bank, is we want to make sure that people are already stressed out enough about what's going on in the situation. So we want to make sure that folks feel a little bit more comfortable with the policies that we have on hand and not having to worry as much about their family lives and their personal lives in relation to this. This is, you know, really what in FEMA training, it's kind of one of those worst case scenario things that come up. You learn about it, you plan for it, but you don't expect to ever go through it, and we're there. So you know, there is a lot of stress going on with a lot of folks, and we're trying to do what we can on a policy basis to help alleviate that, as well as in person and supporting them.
Thank you, Mayor. I apologize. I had my my own mic on mute, so when I was trying to recognize folks, nobody could hear me. I apologize. Sean, I have a question, and I don't know if this should go to you, the chief, or the mayor. Most of these just make perfect sense. It's a great way to take care of folks, especially with the deficit. I do suggest, usually when you have shared leave, that's an individual case where someone has run out of leave. You tell employees and folks can donate. But we could also set up a pool where folks who wanted to could put into the pool, and that would be something any employee could use. So just something to consider for the future. My question is on the very last bullet, premium pay for essential staff that must report for duty. You know, usually when you're paying a full wage and someone needs to come in, they're getting paid. Can you explain the thoughts behind that, whether it's legal or equity, whatever it might be, where someone who's coming into work who's already getting paid would get paid additional pay because they had to come in? What was the thought behind that?
Sure. We were, again, it's kind of reflecting what we've seen a lot of other cities do, but I guess using the best term I can, how do you incent an employee to come in who could otherwise stay at home and who would rather be at home with their family or because of the circumstance of what's going on in the world? And I think that's part of it is understanding that they're taking they're going above and beyond because otherwise somebody could be at home. That's kind of the general rule if it's closed. That's really ultimately the case behind it is providing an incentive for somebody to go do something they don't otherwise have to do necessarily.
So Sean, go ahead, Mayor.
I was going to say, and to add to that, we have a very limited staff. And so our non-exempt or our management exempt crew is very small. And we're looking at something that's going to last and prolong for between 3 and 6 months and potentially longer. And we don't have anybody to replace these folks when they need a break. So providing some level of hazard pay, I think, is important to recognize that additional support that they're providing and that risk that they're putting themselves at with, maybe putting themselves at as well when they're coming to work every day.
So the circumstances would be if the governor would say we're shutting everything down, but certainly they'd probably exempt police, fire, medical folks, and other things like our wastewater treatment water where it's really necessary. So most everybody else can stay home, but in those circumstances, they would come to work, and that's where they would get that hazard pay.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions? Jennifer?
Thanks. So I sent this question ahead of time to Director Thomas about distinguishing between closing buildings to public use and an actual closure. So at what point do we consider the building closed and that someone is going to get the extra, I guess we'll call it hazard pay in this case, if that makes sense? Because, you know, we've closed our buildings to the public, you know, we might partially close one building, but other parts are, I'm just trying to understand where do we, what's the difference?
Yeah. So it was titled, I think that when the first policy came to us, it was titled City Hall closure, and we asked it to be changed to facility closure, but it's not as far as public access. And I'm one of the union shop stewards, and we did a review along with our business agent and other people. So very clearly our understanding of what a facility closure is literally the mayor directs, the governor directs, and it's not our choice or otherwise, and your workplace is not available for you to come in and work. So we're literally saying, hey, we're locking the doors at City Hall. Nobody's here. We're not allowing people to come and work out of this. That's our consideration of a facility closure. So workplace closure, you're not allowed to come into your workplace to perform your typical duties.
So like, for example, the wastewater treatment plant, we have to keep it running. So would we never close that one down, or is there a threshold where we decide, well, in general, we're closed?
Yeah, and it would be tied to the trigger is it's one and all. So I think what you're saying is, well, what if we just close City Hall?
Right.
That we would consider that a facility closure, because yeah, so that would be part of it. Yes, if City Hall is closed, this building also would end up being closed, and yes, that would trigger the treatment plant would be working under a closure, under a facility closure.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Or does that answer your question, I should say?
Yeah, I mean, we just have so many buildings with so many different circumstances. It's just hard to know.
Yeah.
But
no, and I think,
yeah,
I think that
because you might still have the crew out there working, and they're anyway. It's it's just tricky. I see.
Yeah, no, exactly. And the distinction is that, you know, yes, there's essential operations that the crew is going to perform, whether all the facilities are closed or not. Same with the treatment plant, all of that. But again, the trigger is, hey, administration or the governor or someone else has said you are to stay at home. Period. Shelter in place. That sort of a trigger. Again, I'm not saying it has to be from the governor, because we've seen a lot of cities who are doing this right now. They've told their people, you are not coming into work. You're getting paid to be home, because that's where we think you're safest, and we're looking out for your health and wellness. So again, in the situation that our administration or the governor made a choice for us, and everything's closed, people are supposed to stay home. Well, we still have duties, and those people would earn that additional premium time.
Well, Sean, I appreciate your answering our questions. It's always tough when you're asking questions like this. You know, do we care about employees? Or so I think I just want to make the statement. We fully understand that there's a lot of new things for all of us, helping us understand what others are doing, what's the right thing to do. At the end of the day, we want to take care of our employees. The good news is we have budgeted to pay everybody's salaries. So whether they're at work or not, it's in the budget. So I think we're fortunate that way compared to a lot of businesses where when they close the doors, there's no money coming in. So I think it's the right thing to do. You know, I think we see that in the military. There's a big difference between being in the United States and doing training and being in a theater of war where you really are at a higher risk. Some of these things are new to all of us, and we're still just trying to understand them. So thank you for the explanation, and I hope you don't mind when we ask those questions.
Oh yeah, not at all. There's no doubt, and I hope I didn't say anything in that direction at all. But there's no doubt about the commitment of the council and admin to the staff.
Are we ready to move on to the next item?
We are. I said, they can share a screen. Just, yeah. Nope. I'll take it. Yeah. Hey, this is that coop one I was talking about before. It just wandered its way down here, but we'll just go ahead and skip right by it. Okay, so the next one is the pandemic utility billing policy, another very plain slide. I didn't, obviously, again, put all of the verbiage in here. Again, I added a little snapshot of the purpose and the first part of the policy, but the idea behind this one, once again, is to provide some relief to an acknowledgement of our customers who are either cannot work, maybe they're already struggling financially, people who need some additional space. And so the one part of it is we don't need to be turning off people's water meters. One is an exposure to the crew, and one as creating a new mini public health crisis for somebody who we're telling to wash their hands frequently and to use good, proper hygiene techniques. That was one of the triggers for it. Is we really, that's the wrong message to send, is to go shut off somebody's water meter in the middle of a public health crisis. And then also, again, understanding that there are real impacts to our customers as far as their employment and the income they're making, and this is going to have an effect on their ability to pay. So it's not that this is not a debt forgiveness. This is not, we'll never get paid again, but it's providing space for our customers who are uniquely impacted to not feel that they're going to have their water turned off tomorrow, and then provide a mechanism once we start to come out of this emergency on the other end, that we can work with customers on a individual basis to set a payment plan that makes sense for the city and for them.
What happened?
Any questions from folks? Well, seeing none, Sean, thank you again. I think that's something we see with PSC and so many other cities that have made it really clear. They're not going to collections. They're not shutting off people's utilities. And I think that we're doing that for all the right reasons, from public health to just helping take care of our citizens. I expect we'll have more discussion going forward if this lasts a long time and more folks are having a real challenge with just simple things like being able to pay the regular bills. But this is a great way for us to help take care of our citizens that are really in need.
Yeah, excellent. And we also have, logistical issues currently with customers who are paying cash, and we don't want them to come in and pay cash, and our city hall is closed. So this addresses a range of different issues. And again, it provides that relief right at this moment. Bills are due on Friday. So, being able to, if assuming this moves through at council later on tonight, it'll be something we can take to our community right away and talk about.
Sean, is this information, I haven't I'm embarrassed to look at our city main webpage for a few days. Is this information available readily to our citizens?
I don't think it's posted anywhere that I know of. Sorry.
It's not.
The document is in the packet, I believe, but I don't know where our clerk went, but she could confirm that. So that is technically on the website, but if the policy passes, then we'll put something on our front page and we'll push it out through social media.
I think, yeah, we've been talking about this for over a week, but we also didn't want to put the cart before the horse. We didn't really want to say what we were going to do before we knew it could be done.
Yeah,
if you track it.
That makes sense.
So,
well, thank you.
All right.
We're moving on to telecommuting.
All right, telecommuting. So that is the next one. So, and really a lot of these policies are, they're complementary. They're all kind of towards the mission of where we are right now. And as much as we're trying to write policies that can be used in more than just today, they are, we're writing them because we're having today. So we some of these have lives and uses beyond what we're facing right now, but this particular telecommuting policy, and forgive me, I don't know if we had something like this in place. I think this was drafted actually a while ago and has gotten kind of revamped right now. But hold on, I don't want to click you guys out.
And the policy, the updated policy went out by email today. There were there was like a duplication of one of the pages. So we apologize if you didn't get to go into your email yet, but we've updated it.
And we might end up pulling up one of the revised ones. I know there were some minor revisions that I made on our end towards the very end of this, but so again, generally this is recognizing what we're doing. So we've had a lot of laptops deployed here in the last couple of days. I think our number is 10. That's all I could think of. But those are new laptops to us that are purchased and deployed with staff that we intend fully to use because that's our anticipation of what's coming next. Or it's also providing room for people who need to have space. So along with that is the VPN access. So it's network access. And again, that makes our at-home workers the most productive because they can sit at their computer somewhere and work just like they're here. They can access our network and access the documents they work with on a normal basis. A lot of this work is at the discretion and the direction of the supervisor. So again, supervisors have a critical role in helping to assign their staff members with work to do, and then also some accountability with regular check-ins, and again, not just in an accountability sense, but also if we have people who we're not seeing every day that we're accustomed to seeing every day, we still have an interest in checking in on them, making sure they're okay, seeing how their stress level is, especially with this kind of situation we have right now. And again, this policy, I believe, kind of faces this new reality, or just facing reality, period, which is this is a lot of how work gets done right now throughout the world, throughout our region especially. But so again, we're kind of aligning some of our processes to what the industry is doing out there in the great wide world. And we're also acknowledging that this might not even be our choice about somebody telecommuting, because we could close, the governor could close everything for us. And again, we're trying to get ahead of that and make sure that we're ready if we don't have a say in whether all of our staff can come in or not. We're trying to position ourselves in the best position we can. And again, to the mayor's point earlier, this whole suite of policies is also about employee support. So providing some of that emotional need that people know to have security. So we could sit and do nothing, and we could tell people, well, sorry, you got to go home, and that's it, and we hope you come back. But that wouldn't make our employees feel good. It wouldn't, again, it would cause other problems. So what we're doing with this whole suite of policies and some other stuff we're implementing just, on an informal basis, is really building those support levels for our staff to feel comfortable and feel secure and know they can come to work and know that they're, safe. Again, this is, people have a high level of anxiety for this whole incident. So going into the details, and again, if we need to pull something specific, I know one of the items that was revised. Oh, Kerry had his hand up, sorry.
Keith?
No, well said, Sean. I just wanted to add a couple things. When on the previous slide, when it showed that we were at 25,000 capacity for our purchasing, majority of that is for these laptops. And I also want to add that, most of the directors, if not all, are due for computer replacements in the next 6 to 12 months. So the rationale is that these laptops will be those replacements. So as we start looking at federal reimbursement, if the time comes, I think we can look at maybe being reimbursed for that 1 year early or 6 month early depreciation value, because we're purchasing them earlier. But these, again, directors are due for replacements, and the plan with IT was for directors to, desktops to be replaced with laptops to get rid of the surfaces. That's it.
Well put.
Thank you, Chief.
Yeah, so I have the policy in front of me, but I know if there's any questions on it, I know one of the items that was changed that happened right at the very end was, I know there was a little bit of concern about connecting to a home network versus a public network. And I did check in with Snoqualmie IT, and again, understanding this policy has a life outside of just this moment. I talked to them a little bit, and as long as our employees are using their VPN access, there was no concern about what network they were connecting to from Snoqualmie, because the VPN is what provides the protection for for us moving into our network and having, I don't know.
It's the tunnel.
It's the tunnel, it's the shields up, that kind of thing. So I think that was why we changed that, because I think it was read to be home network only, and we were trying to kind of create that space where maybe the employee doesn't have the best connectivity or network. And so we just wanted to make sure there was that room. So maybe the best place is the McDonald's down the street or something like that, and that might be the ideal situation for them.
Connect from their home network.
So one other thing that I was going to add is that those that aren't deployed a laptop, is some of our team is going to be able to go in through either SharePoint or OneDrive and put policy work in there, and that doesn't count as being on like a city network.
Yeah.
It would just be a shared resource, and then when we all come back to work, we would sync everything. Sync everything up.
Yep, that's exactly true. So this telecommuting policy applies also to people like Laura said. I'm probably just restating what she said, but who didn't get deployed a laptop. But yes, they can work remotely and also be highly productive. So.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes, Dot, go ahead.
Oh, great. I have a couple of questions about the telecommuting policy. Is this the right time?
Yes.
Okay. This is in section 3 under the policy. And I think this is just a word. Well, let me start by saying I don't have a problem with telecommuting. I've got friends that have done it for years and years, primarily in the private sector. But under the section 3 policy, an employee may be permitted to telecommute for all or a portion of the employee's work week. I understand that. But what I'm wondering is and this might actually be handled in the new personnel manual, so I'll say that too. But under that wording is so broad that in theory somebody could always work at home. You know what I mean? It's just there's no time limits, or there's nothing like that. It's really all related to the supervisor, and that's fine. But what I have seen with telecommuting is that there are limits that are built into the policies. I'll give you a really good example. Liberty Mutual no longer has offices that are designated to employees. What they have is desks, and employees actually sign up to use a desk, and they have lockers, and otherwise they telecommute. But the expectation is that they'll come into the office like a day a week or something. I mean, and there's good reasons for that. There's a lot of theory about how at least coming in every once in a while continues to keep those team connections and so forth. So I didn't see anything in the policy that created a little bit more of boundaries around that. And I thought to myself, well, maybe when we bring forward the employee manual, that might be a place where some of that could be addressed, but we haven't seen that yet. So that's just a comment. And then the other comment I have is the people I know that have telecommuted for a long time, they have a very specific work plan that has verifiable outcomes to determine whether or not they're either online. I mean, some of this is a little extreme, I think, but actually something that verifies that specific tasks are being done. And the dilemma for council is we don't really see the work plans. So here again, this could be something that maybe is embedded in these new employee policies that ties these two things together, because telecommuting in an emergency situation is definitely different than in a long run. And this policy is written to allow us to do it forever. You know what I mean? It becomes a total place of work option. So I just thought I'd like to hear people's comments on that.
Mayor?
I would like to address that a little bit. The process internally is, in fact, that if somebody is going to be working from home or telecommuting during this crisis or any other time, they have to have the supervisor approval. They have to track their time. They have to track what they're working on, and they have to have permission to do so. I trust our supervisors to make sure that their employees are using the policy responsibly. And I see very few opportunities for folks to actually work at home for a full week. I could see folks, for example, being out on maternity or paternity leave and working remotely for a week at a time and coming into meetings once in a while for a short period of time. But I don't foresee at any point in the future of this city that you would have people completely working from home. We're a service-based organization, and that face-to-face interaction is a prime component of that.
Do you see these, when you bring forward the new employee manual, do you see these two things being somehow integrated in that language then?
As far as your suggestions?
No, I just don't, because this what we're looking at right now to approve is something that is independent of the new manual. So are you envisioning that these things will then somehow merge? Not that the policy will change, but that there will be language that connects the two?
So this policy is not, this is administrative. This is not for council approval this evening. The other ones are for council approval.
Right, yeah, I'm good with that. I'm just saying is when you bring forward with that manual, is you're thinking that this somehow will be a component in that manual that we do approve?
Carrie can answer that directly. I can say historically the reason why this policy was coming forth is because of the VPN access that I've been wanting for our employees. That's taken a long time to launch. We've recently just got VPN access, and so this was the next logical step. Carrie can answer specifically whether it's in his current version of the employee manual.
Chief Hurt, did you want to comment on that? The question was, is the telecommuting policy also incorporated into the employee policy that's still being worked on?
Sure, thank you. So I think as Sean stated earlier, this policy isn't new. It was drafted back when that employee manual was done. It is a part of the new employee manual. And I will say, probably the greatest majority of the work that I'm going to do telecommuting is getting that policy manual done and out to council. I'm going to plead a little bit of ignorance because I don't know what documents all of you have. There is a telecommuting request form that I don't know that you have.
Yes, we have it.
Okay. So as the mayor was saying, there are guidelines. Employees have to request that. It certainly can be modified to meet everyone's needs, but I apologize for my dogs. As the mayor also said, you know, it is up to the discretion of the directors, and the directors are not going to approve, I wouldn't assume, approve a telecommuting request unless there's adequate work and confidence that employee is going to get work done that needs to get done under certain circumstances.
You've answered my question. I mean, it sounds like you do have a strategy for how these two things will work together. And that was really the purpose of my question. I mean, you're talking to somebody who, you know, less than 2 weeks after giving birth was telecommuting. So I'm totally supportive of telecommuting. So thank you.
And for sure, I think you're going to, you know, when we look at today's workforce, this is just another tool for us to be competitive, because the workforce that we are facing right now, it's these types of incentives that are going to draw those folks, those millennials, to this type of workforce.
Yep. Totally agree.
I know I like working from home tonight. That works pretty good. Hey, Jim, thank you. Are there other questions regarding the telecommute policy? Michelle?
I know Amy also had a question too, Councilmember McHenry. But I just was, as I was reading the policy, I do appreciate that you brought this policy for us to look at, even though it's not for approval by council. But in reviewing it, I noticed that it referenced the city administrator being the one to make decisions and didn't reference mayor. And I'm just wondering,
That's a slight oversight. I noticed that this afternoon, and that's easily changed to mayor and or city administrator.
Right. Thank you. Okay. That's all. Amy McHenry.
Member McHenry, you wanted to make a comment.
Yeah, just thinking of a lot of people who haven't telecommuted before, it can be a little more challenging than they think it might be. For example, it's good to obviously have a set place in your home that you're able to set up and not be disturbed for an amount of time. And I saw some things in there about childcare, which I thought were good points to make out. But I was just wondering if in the future, I know this is kind of an emergency and getting this going, but even in the future, if there's a generic type of training video available somewhere that could be utilized just to have people go through and kind of cater their expectations and what they can expect from telecommuting.
Yeah, we love making videos. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's well taken. I think part of what's actually kind of funny part of our struggle right now is getting people to be excited about doing it. We still have a lot of people chained to paper, and they're scared to take something home. So that's kind of our hump right now, is just trying to get people like, hey, no, you can do this. So, but yeah, points well taken. I know Steve he was raising his yellow hand.
So just for information to the group, we have worked on disseminating that policy in our department today. As you're aware, or maybe you aren't aware, in our office down here at the treatment plant, we have many people bundled up to an office. So to try to minimize the commingling and social distancing requirements, we're enacting that. So the 2 folks in an office and a third who's a compromised immune, I think it's public knowledge, right? Larissa is expecting a child, so she's fairly ambivalent, but we want to make sure she's protected. And I'm actually kind of excited. They do have their setup at their desks at home. Workstations are there. You know, they've checked out all the paperwork with Sean. They have not been deployed yet because Sean got overwhelmed this afternoon with getting that done, and some kind of tug of war with IT. But that's going to be a good thing, I think, for the folks who are certainly used to working at home and have a good setup, and honestly, nobody there to bother them. I would prefer to be here because I will get bothered. So that's just how it works. So it's a two-way street. We're trying to function highly, keep people safe, but yet provide opportunity to keep them safe in their own house and keep them working and getting product out of them. So there's a lot of work to do. I think that was all my point.
Just one last thing. In general, I think our employees really want to stay in the house and work from their offices because we're definitely creatures of habit. But I think there are great opportunities when we work on policy work in any department where we can deploy somebody home, maybe for 3 to 5 days, and get a whole policy banged out without any interruption. So I think it is a great opportunity for us in general. We just have to become more comfortable with telecommuting.
Well, if there aren't any other questions, any comments? Diane? Welcome back, Mayor.
I think with telecommuting, I think from my experience watching my husband and watching his organization, if you have a good plan in place and you manage it well, it actually can be very beneficial. So I don't see a problem, and it is the future. Here we are.
Thank you for that.
Hey, Mike. One more thing too, just to be clear,
Yeah.
I know the mayor mentioned technical terms like VPN. You're only protected and issued a VPN when you're issued a city device, so a laptop. You can go home and work on your own machine through the cloud. So we all have 365 accounts, as many people do. So that's where we also are doing some work checking, where it goes to the cloud and shared with us. We're communicating twice a day at a minimum with our staff, is what we've set up. And we can see, what's going on in that respect. And then when they run out of work, it's easy for them to come back in still and or ask for files to be, uploaded on their behalf. So 2 different.
Thank you for that, Steve. Well, we're getting to the end of our time here, and I do want to give us a little bit of time. We do need to log off of this meeting and log on to the next meeting. So the easiest way, again, is to go to your calendar, hit on the link. For anyone who needs a code for the next meeting, it is in the email, but I'll provide you that code now. That number is 122-4 1-222-43-8050. And again, that number is 1-222-43-8050. And lastly, I just want to say I haven't been involved with Bellevue, Seattle, King County, and with the state COC many times. I am really proud of our city. This is a huge body of work to come up with a continuity of operations. This is something new for all of us, at least in my lifetime. I've never seen something this extensive. It affects every citizen, every employee, and I think we're doing a great job. The mayor jumped in early, looked at the information, got us started with a declaration of an emergency that I think many others are just trying to catch up to now. We're all still working on this together. I would leave before we get off here is just simply say, if you've got things you need from council, be sure to ask us. And we appreciate the updates you have both on the finance and policy side. Well, with that, let's all leave the meeting. In the lower right-hand side, there's a leave meeting, and then we can go in and log on to our council meeting.
It's right up here, right?
We'll see you in just a moment.
All right, see you guys soon.